Great. Hi, everybody. So I'm Mary Sprimuli, a speech language pathologist and owner of Voice Aerobics. I'm here with four Loud Crowd members. All of you have a diagnosis of Parkinson's, but that's not the most important thing. You all are interesting in your own right. But as a part of therapy, when we were doing one-to-one therapy and then afterward, you all began to use the breather, an inspiratory, expiratory, respiratory muscle trainer. And I just would like you to share a little bit about what you've noticed, because I always think the feedback that I get from patients is always interesting to me, and it helps guide me in terms of recommendations for other people. Ray, I'm going to start with you just because I think your situation was sort of interesting. You came to me initially soon after you'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's. You hadn't even been started on any medication. And your speech and your voice was pretty strong. So you really weren't interested in doing any therapy at that time, but I had showed you the breather and told you a little bit about how it might help, and you were interested in that. And so you got some instructions, a little bit of training, you went off on your way, and I saw you back a year later. And at the time of the initial evaluation, like I do with all patients, I took some acoustic data. And when you came back to see me in a year later on all of those measures, all those voice acoustic measures, speech measures, you were even better than you were at the time of your evaluation. And I asked you at that time if you were still using the breather, and you said, oh yeah, every morning. So are you still using the breather?
You bet. That's
and
my
I know
routine.
Yeah, and I know you're using the breather fit now. You kind of graduated to that.
Yeah, right. It gives me more of a feedback of how I'm blowing on it and getting the exercise out of the instrument.
A little more resistance. When do you usually do your exercise?
I do that right after breakfast.
Okay.
And I go back to my easy chair and open up the sliders to the outside. And I just look out and I count down each move, and I go 10 times, full breath and releasing all the way to the end. And I'll do that for 10 minutes, 10 times, and then I'll take about a minute break, because it's your working gift,
Right.
And I do that 3 times, so I had a total of 30 breaths. And by the time I'm done, like this morning, I feel a little bit woozy. It's almost like it's a drug.
Really,
It feels so good.
Yeah, well, you're getting a lot of oxygen.
It's a nice way to wake up to yourself. Yeah, because you.
What are your settings, Ray?
I have it here, so I know it's. I use 4 and 4.
Okay, so you're
it's not the strongest, but I want something that my ear keeps moving through.
Yep.
And I find that I have much more strength in my lung now. I can take a breath and all the way up without making think I'm gonna have to get a cough about 6 times, or the same thing at the bottom of breathing.
That's a pretty high level of resistance.
And
Robin, are you using the original breather, the white and blue one, or are you using the breather fit? The white and blue one. And what are your settings?
3 and 4.
Okay, and what is your protocol of use? How do you use it?
I usually use it twice a day, sometimes just once, but I use it and I do it 2 to 3 times. So similar to Ray, I do it 10 times and then I stop for a couple of minutes, then I use it 10 times again. Usually the second round is better than the first round, but it makes me feel good when I can get it into that red zone. And I can tell when I'm having a bad day, because I need really the lung expansion for me to get my voice going better. So this is good for me.
I know that one of the motor symptoms that you've sort of fussed with a little bit is what we think is a little bit of maybe spasm of muscles. Do you feel you have better rib cage expansion during or after you've used?
Well, definitely. I can tell if I'm having a bad day. So I try and use it if I'm having a bad day. I try and use it when I'm doing badly to see how bad I am. And then sometimes when I'm thinking I'm having a really bad day, it's amazing how I can move it into the red zone. But then other times I can't. So I can tell when I need to work on it more, when I can only get it up to like the 30s and 40s.
So it sounds like it could be another tool that could help you kind of monitor symptoms even, right? Some of the motor symptoms, yeah. Does anybody use it because of anxiety. So use it again to sort of regulate breathing when they might be feeling some anxiety, or use it to help with sleep, or anybody use it that way. Roger, how are you using a Breather Fit now as well, right? You graduated.
I use a Breather Fit, and I use it several days a week. I do a count of 10, and I use it, as you said, to relieve tension, as well as I do yoga, but I can't get the breathing effect in yoga even if I concentrate on the breath, because I use the breather for diaphragmatic training that I can't get any other way. I am part of a singing group, and I don't get the deep breathing that I do when I use the breather. It pulls my diaphragm down, it trains it, and it's an adjunct to the other ways that I control my breath to relax.
Yeah, great. I think that's a great use of it.
That's really the way I use it also, as a diaphragm muscle exercise. Like Roger, I don't sing like Roger, but I have a problem with the amount of air that I can bring in. And so using this Breather Fit, I exercise that. My diaphragm is working much better. And the Parkinson's has not affected my voice as much as I thought it would. And it's been much better.
I remember when Mike first began to use the breather, it was after he'd done some therapy, and his voice sounds great today, and it sounded great really when I first met him, but he was an early exerciser. But you were frustrated because you always had trouble sustaining that vowel, even for 10 seconds. And it just annoyed you because you were otherwise fit, and you would tell me you could swim and had good breath control, and you just couldn't sustain that But then I know over time you reported back to me, or I just observed that as you were doing more of that specific respiratory muscle strengthening exercise, that your duration of voicing for that kind of a task got better.
Exactly. I really enjoy using it also.
Does anybody use it, or has anybody thought to incorporate it when you're doing any sort of physical exercise? So maybe where you're doing any balance, or because those are core muscles that we use for balance. Nope. So I think that's another area maybe unexplored. But when you're doing some training alone or with PT where you're working on balance, where you might also use your breather to help with that.
It's very calming. When
all right, well,
it.
great.
It's calming.
Yeah.
It makes you feel in tune with yourself.
Yep.
I agree.
And
I think
it increases strength in your body, makes you feel stronger.
I think that calming effect happens for any of us when we just do something that helps to regulate our breathing patterns and kind of lower the breath. All right, well, thank you for sharing, everybody, and continue using your device as a part of your exercise program. And I know everybody will appreciate your feedback. All right, and
Thanks,
thank you. Okay, have a great
Excellent.
day.
Thank you, Mary.